I don't want to jinx it, so I'll whisper it quietly, but I think I've made a major breakthrough in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Now, I've struggled for weeks, months in this sim, but in my recent videos, several of you noticed that my force feedback settings weren't doing me any favours. You've recommended some changes to make, so this week I've made a few tweaks here and there, and I feel like a completely different driver in ACC. I'll talk more about those changes later in the video, because right now we've got a race to begin. Now, I'm starting down in 15th with a 202.9, but this qualifying time certainly doesn't paint the full picture. I'm feeling way more confident in the car, and I'm feeling really competitive now too, but I invalidated 2 qualifying laps late on while putting 5 of a second up. Had I seen those laps through, I'd have been starting 7th. All of a sudden, I feel like I'm on the pace to challenge. In most ACC races I've entered on Low Fuel Motorsport, I've struggled even to get into the top 20, but I really do feel like I've turned the corner here. Sure, it's going to be tough from 15th on the grid, but I'm feeling optimistic I can make some decent progress here and push for the top 10. Can I do it? Let's get on track and find out. And as the lights go green, I'm grateful to be on the inside of the track. I think it's probably the safest place to be approaching turn 1 at Suzuka. It can get really crowded in here, 2, 3 wide. So as long as I stay tight to this inside curve, I should be safe. And it looks like everybody's got through safely. Oh, cold tyres, we almost lost it there, getting on the gas out of turn 1. That has allowed Stefan Hepp in the Aston Martin to tuck it up the inside of us. Oh, and there's contact behind as well. I just saw a Mercedes getting sideways in my rearview mirror. That must have been Jürgen Meyer. He got tangled up with the McLaren of Cordola Spears. We've lost both of those guys. They may have taken a couple of other cars with them, because all of a sudden there's a big gap that's opened up behind. Meanwhile, in front, we've got another Aston Martin who appears to be well down on speed. That's Christopher Sean. Now, Sean started 6th on the grid, so he's had a disastrous start. I did, for a moment, consider trying to run it around the outside of him at Degner, but I thankfully came to my senses quickly there. We'll be safer tucking back in behind on this opening lap. And as we approach the hairpin for the first time then, we're holding on to our starting position of 15th. We've got Cordola Spears right behind us in 16th now. I thought we'd lost Spears in that incident in the S's at the start of the lap, but he clearly survived it, and he's closing back in, just 0.3 of a second back now. We'll go back and take another look at that incident on the replay shortly, but first we'll get this opening lap out the way, and it's been a solid enough start for us. Sure, we haven't gained any positions, but we haven't lost any either. And as soon as I can get my tyres up to pressure, I do feel confident that I can challenge all of these guys in front. Now, the reason for my confidence are the changes that I made to my force feedback settings in the week. Cast your eye to the bottom right of the screen. You'll see a flickering grey bar, which may turn red briefly as we go through 130R. Now, several of you had pointed out that that bar was staying red for far too long in my other recent videos. That's because I had my force feedback dialed up too high. I was asking too much of my wheel, and it was costing me big time, particularly through corners. But just by bringing those settings down a notch or two, it has made a huge difference to my pace. So we finished the opening lap in 15th position. It was a fairly quiet first lap by ACC standards. The only incident of note was the coming together between Jürgen Meyer and Cordola Spears right behind me. There's that contact. Spears was able to keep going. Meyer and several others not so lucky. I'm just running it in a little bit hot into T1. I'm never going to make this apex, so we're going to hang it out wide, not through choice. Oh, the rear gets a little bit squirrely on exit as well. These tyres not quite up to temperature yet. It's going to invite Cordola Spears to challenge behind. But I just need to regain some composure here. I've been speaking a lot about my confidence and my extra pace, so I don't want to throw it all away with a foolish mistake in this early going. It looks like we've lost Spears properly this time. He's dropped right back, and we've also lost Christopher Sean, who loses control of the Aston Martin right in front of me. Well, I entered the S's holding on to 15th position for dear life. By the time I came out of them, I was up to 14th. This is Cordola Spears putting me under all sorts of pressure, but he too, struggling with the cold tyres, just loses some grip, and that puts him out onto the grass. And then I needed some ultra quick reactions to avoid Christopher Sean. Watch him lose the rear of the Aston Martin. I've got such little time to react. Somehow we managed to get past without running onto the grass. That was a close one. Well, I wondered if Cordola Spears may have got caught up in that Christopher Sean spin, but it looks like the McLaren man got through safely. He's up to 15th, but he is now 2 seconds behind me. So that extra breathing room is allowing me to focus on catching these guys in front. We're going to pick up another place because there's an Audi that spun out of the hairpin. That was going to Hadi Hatama. And yeah, it was a big hit for Hatama, this one. It looks like he was just too hard on the brakes coming into the hairpin, lost control and absolutely walloped that barrier. Well, we're approaching the end of lap 2 and it looks like these tyres are finally up to pressure, so now is my chance to try and push a little bit harder and close in on this pack in front. As I said at the start of the video, I'm feeling more confident with the handling of the car, particularly through corners now. I'll do another video later in the week explaining the changes I made in more detail, but for now we're going to pick up 2 positions without even trying because there's been a big crash coming out of 130R. I did have to take the inside line into the chicane to make sure I could get past Hubert. Gast safely. Gast in that silver Mercedes behind was rejoining to the left. My compromise line did force me to run in a little bit deep into that chicane. And the knock-on effect is less speed down the straight, which means Gast might challenge here. We're going to close the door into T1. We're not going to let him through. And he's going to apply all sorts of pressure in the rearview mirror now, but I've got to stand up for myself. I've got a whole third here. Gas qualified up in 9th on the grid. Now, normally I'd be aware that he's a faster driver and I wouldn't take too many risks. But today I feel like I've got the pace to gap him. Well, let's check out the instant that promoted me up 2 positions to 11th, and it was actually 2 separate instants. This is the first. Look at Gast flashing his headlights as he loses it through 130R, and then in the background we see a completely separate instant. But yeah, Gast rejoining. I managed to tuck it up the inside into the chicane. Here's the second spin. Christian Hart it is, taking too much of that curb on the inside, and I know from experience driving those Ferraris, they do not like those curbs. Well, we're only halfway through lap 3 and already we're having to deal with the back marker. Josh Brannigan in the Mercedes up ahead. We're closing in on him fast. Now, he was really respectful with the guys further ahead and let them all by. It looks like he's going to do the same again, but I'm just a bit hesitant in case he decides to rejoin. He doesn't do, but as we exit Spoons, I light up the rears. That spin is going to cost us big time. Let's look to the rear view mirror. Gast is going to take full advantage. He's carrying a lot more speed down this back straight. He moves up the inside. Now being on the outside, too wide into 130R rarely ends well, so I lift off the gas and it looks like it's a good job I did because Gas threw that in really hot. We're going to challenge around the outside of the chicane to try and get this position back. We can do it. So try as we might, we can't hold on to 11th position. Spinning up those rear tyres out of Spoons has proved costly. But yeah, it was definitely the right call to back out of this one. Watch Gast's line and watch what would have happened if I'd stayed alongside him. I would have been forced out to the gravel there, so we did exactly the right thing to lift off and let him have that position. I tried to challenge for it back, but there just wasn't room through the chicane. Well, with Gas back in front of me, I thought the better strategy would be to follow him rather than fight him. I thought we'd both stand a better chance of catching these cars in front if we worked in tandem. So far it seems to be working. Halfway through lap 5, and look how close we've got to that pack of cars in front. 7th to 11th, all within sight now. Oh, but Gas gets a little bit too close to Norbert Huck in 10th position. There was almost contact. Gas had to get out of that one, and I was forced into a move up the inside that I didn't really want to take. Gas has recovered by the looks of it, still in front of me, but it's cost us both some valuable time to the pack of cars in front. And it looks like Gas has completely lost his rhythm. He's run out wide into Spoons. There's a gap up the inside. This is an opportunity for us to take 11th position back. We get on the gas as quickly as we can. We're now too wide coming down this long straightaway, but it looks like that Mercedes has just got a bit of extra grunt. So we'll return to plan A. We'll tuck back in behind Gas and see if we can start reeling back in. That pack in front, but Gas out wide at 130R and he stacked it. Yeah, once again, it was a wise decision to back out of a battle in 130R. This time around, Gas loses control completely. Oh, I was lucky not to get collected there. Well, with a bit of space around me, I'm really starting to find my groove now. I've just put in my fastest lap of the race at 2:02.7, and I've halved the deficit to this four-way battle in front. But as we approach the hairpin, 4 cars go in and only 1 comes out. This battle ahead has been blown apart, and we have gained 3 places in 1 corner. We're up into 8th. What on earth caused that catastrophe? I think the chopper cam will give us the best view. Now, this is the battle for 7th. Watch the Aston Martin at the back of the shot. That's Stefan Hepp. He's going to run into the rear of the blue McLaren, Emilio Castellano. That sends Castellano careering into the BMW of Holger Vetsky, who was in 7th position, on board with Hepp. There's the contact with the McLaren. And just like that, we lose 7th, 8th and 9th position from this race. Dramatic stuff at Suzuka. Well, when the dust settled, I had more than enough pace to hold my own against Hepp and Wetsky behind. They're now 3 seconds back by the time we get to lap 8. And I'm going to gain another position here. We're promoted to 7th, and that's because of an unfortunate disconnect for Dmitry Zadinsky. Now, at this point, I'm more than 2 seconds behind the Lamborghini of Norbert Huck in 6th position, so I'm desperately trying to keep him in sight, while also hoping that he closes in on the battle for 4th. We can see that now. The number 19, Alexander Herzberg, currently occupying 4th, but he's under all sorts of pressure from Jorge Figueres. And there's that light blue Lambo of Huck. He is looking menacing. We're going to need this battle ahead to get physical very, very quickly if we're going to stand any chance of closing in on these guys, because although my pace is good, it's not good enough to close this 3-second gap to Huck. We've only got 4.5 minutes of the race left. We're approaching the end of lap 10 now. Time is against us here. We are much faster than the cars behind, though. Hepp now 4.1 seconds back. Vetsky 4.3 seconds back. Oh, it has turned physical up front. Figueres on the grass to the left. Herzberg on the grass to the right. We squeeze through the middle of them now. We find ourselves in the top 5 with 4 minutes of this race left. Well, let's see what happened between these two then. Alexander Herzberg in the Aston Martin is in 4th at the moment, but let's keep our eye on Jose Figueres in the Honda behind. Oh, he's just going to get too close to Herzberg. He's going to tap the rear of that Aston. He goes out onto the grass himself, and there's the secondary contact between the 2 cars. That's what gives me the chance to dive up the inside. I just managed to get around Herzberg and into that 5th position. Here's another look at the contact. Figueres is just running in too hot. He can't get it stopped. And the battle for 4th position has just come to blows in spectacular fashion. We're watching Herzberg rejoin. I just managed to nip by, but Herzberg is right on my tail now, so we're not going to have it easy over these final couple of laps. Well, my late race pace wasn't great, mainly because I was struggling to keep my tyre pressures down. However, I still had more than enough to hold off Herzberg. We're just working our way through the chicane for the final time. Herzberg is 1.5 seconds back now. And I'm going to cross the line to take the checkered flag in 5th position, a top 5, by far my best performance in Assetto Corsa Competizione.
I'll bring the car back.
Well, I've had some decent finishes in this sim before, a couple of top 10s, a couple of top 15s, but in truth, my pace has never really deserved it. I've only ever got those finishes because other drivers crashed out. Now, the same could be said of this race. There were a lot of crashes, and that gave us a load of positions, but I'm looking at my lap times, and for the first time ever in ACC, I can truly say that I was competitive. Sure, the race winner, Francesco Fanara, and the runner-up, Daniel Sebastian, both had fastest laps in the 201s, but I was the best of the rest, a 202.7, quicker than the drivers in 3rd and 4th, and quicker than the vast majority of drivers behind me too. This is a real improvement for me in Assetto Corsa Competizione, and I still can't quite believe it. So yeah, for once I finish a race in this sim full of positivity and optimism. Can I build on it though? That's the big question. I'm looking forward to finding out. Thank you ever so much for watching. Cheers.